Alright, section 3.2, the voiceover homework. Number one, what I see here is that number one is already in factored form, so I got 5x minus 7 times quantity 5x plus 1 equals 0. According to the zero multiplication property, if this times this equals 0, either the first thing equals 0 or the second equals 0, they both equal 0. Alright, so 5x minus 7 equals 0, then 5x is equal to positive 7, bringing that over and dividing both sides by 5. X is equal to 7/5. Now, I'm going to stop right there and go back to my answers. I only see one that has the answer 7/5. I'm done. You know, why even bother solving it? If I solve this guy here, I'd get x is equal to a negative 1/5. Yeah, but hey, there's only one answer that had 7/5. I was finished. Didn't have to do anything else. Number two, 49x squared minus 14x minus 8 equals 0. The first thing I need to do here is, I would suggest, is scan the coefficients to see if there's any common factor to make this, reduce it down to the lowest term, so to speak. Nothing going on, so I'm going to set this off equal to 0. 49, I could go with 1 and 49. I'm going to try 7 and 7. If that doesn't work, and then I'll try the 1 and 49. This is a negative, so it tells me these signs are opposite. One's a positive and one's a negative. So I'm looking for factors of 14. I'm going to probably go, kind of take a look at your answers here. I'm going to go with a 2 and a 4 and see how that works out for me. 7 times a minus 4, that's going to be a minus 28. Minus 28. Minus 28x. This gives me a positive 14x. Combined, that's a negative 14x. That's what I'm looking for. So, you know, you get really good at factoring. If this didn't work, I would switch the 4 and the 2 until you find the right combination that gave you minus 14 in the middle. So 7x plus 4 equals 0. If this times this equals 0, either this guy is 0 or the second one is 0. Solving this, I get 7x equal to a negative 2, and x is equal to a negative 2/7. Let's check out negative 2/7. I only see one that's got a negative 2/7. I am done, ladies and gentlemen. Why do any further? I got negative 2/7. There's only one answer there. Let us see. If I solve the other side just because I want to solve it, bringing that over as a positive and dividing both sides by 7, there's my other answer, 4/7. You see it right there. But once I knew I had, this is the only one that, you know, had negative 2/7, I was done. I was done. Why do more than you have to do? Why do more than you have to do? Number 3, 42x plus 6x squared equals 0. So let me just rewrite this in correct order. So I only have a binomial. And what I notice here is I got a factor of 6 that's common to both, and I got a factor of x. So if I factor out a 6x, this gives me x plus 7. X plus 7. So if this times this equals 0, either the first term, 6x equals 0, which means that x is equal to 0 divided by 6, x is equal to 0. And then once again, I only see one answer here that has an answer of 0. You know, to be quite honest, I'm done. If I solve the other portion, x plus 7 equals 0, then x is equal to a minus 7. But I kind of knew that B was the answer because it was the only one that had a 0 for an answer. I didn't have to even do the rest of it. Not that that was that difficult to do. Not that that was difficult to do. Number 4, 2x squared plus 2 is equal to 340. I'm going to bring this onto this. Well, let me do it this way. Let me do it this way. Let me bring the 2 over as a negative. 340 subtract 2. 2x squared equal to 338. I'm going to divide both sides by 2. 2's cancel. X squared equal to 164. Alright, and taking the square root of x squared plus or minus the square root of 164. X is equal to plus or minus 338, 164. Number 4, letter. Why is he telling me letter D here? Number 4. So let's see what we've got. 2x squared plus 2 equals 340. Subtracting 2 on both sides, that's 338. Dividing, let's see, 338. This is 1, 2, 1, 13. 6, 12. There it is. Not 164, but 169. Okay. And that makes more sense because the square of 169 is 13. So there's my 2 answers. Plus or minus 13. Yeah, half of 138 is 169, not 164. So number 4, yeah, it's letter D, 13. Plus or minus 13. Yeah. Sometimes doing it in your head, it's better to do pencil and paper. Half of 338, 169. Number 5. Number 5. X squared plus 6x plus 9 equals 15. Alright, I'm going to bring the 15 over as a negative. X squared plus 6x. Let's see, my positive 9 and negative 15 is a negative 6 equal to 0. Now, as I look at my answers here, yeah, I see one integer, all right, and all of these have radicals, all right. I'm not going to be able to factor this and get any kind of radicals. In fact, the factors are 6, 1 and 6, 2 and 3. Nothing's going to give me 6 in the middle term. So when you look at your answers prior to even trying, I mean, you would have tried to factor this, but it wasn't going to work, all right? So you're saying, hey, I need to do the quadratic formula here. All right, so quadratic formula, x is equal to the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a, where my a value is 1, my b value is equal to 6, and my c value is a negative 6. So x equal to the opposite of b, the opposite of 6 is negative 6, plus or minus the square root of b, which is 6, b squared, 6 squared, or I'll just write this, 6 squared minus 4 times a times c, where a is 1 and c is negative 6. All of this divided by twice a. Well, if a is 1, twice 1 is 2. And let's see what we got in the radical. Plus or minus the square root. What do we got here? 36, 6 squared. 2 minus signs, that's a positive. 4 times 1 is 4 times 6 is 24. Divided by 2. Minus 6 plus or minus the square root. 24 and 36 would be 60. I don't need all of that. And this divided by 2. Now 60 is not a perfect square, but I can express 60 as 4 times 15. Now why I chose 4 is because 4 is a perfect square. So this becomes negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 4 times the square root of 15 all over 2. The square root of 4 is 2, so this is negative 6 plus or minus 2, the square root of 15 divided by 2. You look at the answers for number 5, you don't see that, all right? But you do notice that the numerator, so if you don't see this answer, all right, if you don't see this answer listed here, what you're saying to yourself is maybe there's something more I can do here. Now I notice that 6 and 2 all have a factor of 2. So if I factor out a 2 here, I get a negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 15 all over 2. Alright, 2 times that's a minus 6, 2 times that is that, and then finally here the 2's cancel out. So minus 3 plus or minus the square root of 15. Now what he did, he wrote this as 3 plus the square root of 15, and I look at it wrong. What we've got here is a minus 3. We see this minus 3 plus or minus. So what I could have done here is written this as minus 3 plus the square root of 15 and minus 3 minus the square root of 15. So I'm looking at this and I'm matching it up with letter D. Alright, so it's minus 3 plus the square root of 15 minus 3 minus the square root of 15. I got it. So the key thing here is when you looked at this problem, you looked at the answers, you saw 3 out of the 4 answers had radicals. You're not going to get a radical when you simplify, all right, when you try to factor it. So that gave me a hint. That gave me a hint that, hey, I needed to use the quadratic form because it wasn't going to factor into the product of 2 binomials. Number 6 is kind of, well, it's different in the sense that you've got a third degree equation, but it actually works out to be fairly straightforward. Number 6, y cubed minus 12y squared plus 20y equals 0. And what I see is I got a factor of y in each of those terms. So I'm going to factor a y out. Leave me y squared minus 12y plus 20 equals 0. So if this times this equals 0, according to the multiplication property of 0, either this equals 0, either y equals 0, or y squared minus 12y plus 20 equals 0. So I have one solution already. And here again, it's a third degree equation. I'm going to get 3 answers. Alright, 2 of these only had 2 answers. Now granted, you could have a situation where 2 of the answers are the same, but you won't really see that here. So even though it's a third degree equation, there could be only 2 answers and one of them is duplicated, but probably not here. So both of these, A and B, both have 0 as a solution. Now I need to solve this by factoring. Positives, so my signs are going to be the same. I look here, they're both going to be negative. And I'm going to go with a 2-10 combination. It gives me 12 in the middle for my middle term. Solving this, either y minus 2 equals 0 or y minus 10 equals 0. So this gives me y is equal to positive 2, and this gives me y equal to positive 10. And so I'm looking for 0, 2, or 10. Number 6, there it is, letter A, 0, 0, 10, and 2. 0, 10, and 2, letter A. I was pretty comfortable that it wasn't these 2. But that doesn't mean that you'll never see a third degree equation where there'll only be 2 answers. What ends up happening is one of them is a double root, but you won't see that situation until you go on to, well, it would be pre-cal. There may be an obscure problem, and someone's in our textbook that has that, but we won't see that. Use the graph to find the x-intercepts. Well, right there, I got one at 1, 0. And that guy there is at 4, 0. Number 7, let us see. Yeah, good if I put the negative, huh? Negative 1, 0. This is 4, 0. Negative 1, 0, 4, 0. So here again, he was telling me my x-intercepts are negative 1 and positive 4. Negative 1, positive 4. Negative 1, 0, and 4, 0. Letter C. Number 8, what have I got here? That's negative 6, 0, and this guy here is negative 3, 0. Alright, so negative 3, 0, I got it. Negative 6, 0, I got it. And my x-intercepts are the x values, negative 3 and negative 6. Number 8, letter B. Alright. And here again he plays games with you, so, you know, that's a negative 6, 0, that's a negative 3, 0. So you're matching that up with these two guys right there. Alright. Negative 6, 0, negative 3, 0. Use the quadratic formula to find the exact solutions. Yeah, could I use the calculator? But notice all of these examples pretty much, you know, that's 2 integers, that's 2 integers, those 2. But the majority of these problems all have square roots, whether they're positive or negative. When you see square roots, that's telling you that the only way you're going to be able to solve these bad boys is by using the quadratic formula. So that's just, you can try to factor this all you want. Factors of 65 that add up to a negative 8. Yeah, that ain't going to work. So number 9, x squared minus 8x plus 65 equal to 0. So my A value is 1. My B value is negative 8. And my C value is 65. So x is equal to the opposite of B, plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C, all divided by 2A. The opposite of B, the opposite of a negative 8 is a positive 8, plus or minus the square root of B squared, negative 8 squared minus 4 times A, which is 1, times C, which is 65. Could it get any bigger? All of this divided by twice A, twice 1 is 2. So 8 plus or minus the square root of 8 squared is 64. This is going to be a negative, and what's 65 times 4? 260. 260. I made that so large, I always do that. 260 a minus all over 2. So this is 8 plus or minus the square root of 260 minus 64 is going to be 196. Yeah, negative 196 all over 2. And what do we got here? 196. Let's see, 16 times 16. Yeah, that's 156. So how can I see 196? 16 times 16, that's not going to do it. So let me see if we can break up 196 into the product of a couple of things. This is what, number 9. Let's see what 49. 196, 7 times 2, that should be 14. Let's see, 656, yeah, this is a perfect square. 8 plus or minus, let me rewrite this as a negative 1 times 196 over 2. So this would become 8 plus or minus the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 196 over 2. Now, square root of negative 1 is I. So this is 8 plus or minus I. Square root of 96 is 14 divided by 2. So I can rewrite this as 8 plus or minus 14I over 2. If I factor out a 2 in the numerator, I get 4 plus or minus 7I over 2. I like it. The two 2's cancel out. 4 plus or minus 7I. Yeah, 4 plus or minus 7I. Alright. It was nice that 196 was a perfect square. It was nice. Number 10. X squared equal to 12 plus 5x. I'm going to bring both those terms over to the left side. X squared minus 5x minus 12 equals 0. I would look at this and think I could maybe factor it, but if I look at the answers, you know, I'm getting 5 and 12. Those are the only whole numbers. Everything else, 3 out of the 4 have radicals. So chances are, not chances are, but the way I want to solve this is the quadratic formula. X is equal to the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. My a value is 1, my b value is minus 5, and my c is minus 12. So the opposite of b, the opposite of a minus 5 is a positive 5, plus or minus the square root of b squared. So that's a minus 5 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is a minus 12, all over twice whatever a is. A is 1, twice 1 is 2. So 5 plus or minus the square root of minus 5 squared is 25. Minus times a minus is a positive. 4 12s are 48. And here again I make this radical sign as big as, I don't know what, all over 2. So what do we got here? 5, the sum of 25 and 48, 13 carried to 173, all over twice a, which is 2. So number 10, it's kind of nice how that worked out. Alright, didn't have any perfect squares, so whatever I got, I saw it right there, but yeah, there's no I involved there. These both have I's. There was no negative. You didn't have any negative on the radical, so 10 letter A worked out pretty good. Number 11. X squared. I'm trying to keep this as straight as I possibly can, but it's difficult to write and to be on an angle here. Plus 35 equals 5x. So bringing this over, I have x squared minus 5x. So bringing that over. Plus 35 equals 0. Here again, there's no factors of 35. They're going to add up to be a minus 5. So I got to use the quadratic formula. A is 1. B is minus 5, and C is 35. Okay, so quadratic is the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. The opposite of b, the opposite of b, the opposite of a minus 5 is a positive 5. Plus or minus the square root of minus 5 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 35. I love when they give us those big c values. All over twice a. A is 1, twice 1 is 2. 5 plus or minus the square root of 25. We got one minus sign. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 35 is 140. all of this divided by 2. So it looks like I'm going to get a negative radicand, which means I'm going to get something involving I. So I know it's not going to be these two. Alright, because I've got something here that's going to give me a negative when I subtract these two. So this is 5 plus or minus the difference between 140 and 25 is a negative 115. And can I stop drawing that radical symbol so large? All over 2. Now, here's a case where you, well, I shouldn't even say that because I see it right there. I'm going to break this up into. I'm going to divide both these two terms by 2. So I got 5 halves plus or minus. Now I'm going to write this the square root of a negative 115 as the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 115. Now, the square root of negative 1, the square root of negative 1 is I. So this becomes the square root of 115I divided by 2. Alright, I took both of these and I'm going to divide them by 2. Alright, so negative 115 is negative, square root of negative 1 times 115, but this is nothing more than I. So this is 115, square root of 115I divided by 2. Now what he does here, he has a habit of doing this. My correct answer is letter D. And what he did is just he moves this I down halfway, alright? He moves it down halfway. In other words, if you multiplied I times this is like I over 1, so the I would be in the numerator, alright? So that's number 11, and we've got the correct answer, letter D. That wasn't so bad, I mean. Yeah, negative 115, no big deal. It's kind of nice when you see what you're getting for a radicand. You kind of see it as one of the answers. You know you're on the right track. So look at number 12. They all have radicals, so I'm not even going to attempt to even try to factor this. I haven't done that yet. 3t squared minus 7t. I'm going to bring the 1 over as a negative. Subtract 1 on both sides. So my A value is 3, my B value is negative 7, and my C value is equal to a negative 1. X equal to the opposite of B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4. AC all over twice A. The opposite of B, the opposite of a minus 7 is a positive 7. Plus or minus B squared, 7 squared. Minus 4 times A, which is 3, times C, which is a negative 1, all over twice A. Twice 3 is 6. 7 plus or minus the square root of 7 squared is 49. I get 2 minus signs, so my product is positive. 4 times 3 is 12 times 1. Is what, 12? Yeah, like that. And all over 6. So 7 plus or minus the sum of 49 and 12, that's 61. You stop drawing that thing so much. And this is all over 6. And number 12, I think I see it right here. 7 plus or minus the square root of 61, all divided by 6. Yeah, I love it. I love it. There was no I's involved. Nothing. You didn't have anything that, you know, my radicand here was positive. One way I would have gotten something involved in I if this guy had been negative. It wasn't. And what was the difference here? This had a negative 7. This had a positive 7. Well, the opposite of B. If B is minus, the opposite of a minus is a positive. That's why it was positive 7 and not negative 7. You should be careful. I mean, right to the end, you do everything properly, and then he tries to play a game on you by putting a positive and a negative in. But you've seen me over the course of all these videos I've done. Sometimes you forget a minus sign. So he's asking me to solve these like we've done before, And here again, I see 3 out of the 4 answers contain the letter I. So what that's telling me is that in order to get I, I had to do the quadratic formula. I mean, 4 and 8, 4 times, negative 4 times 8 ain't going to be a positive 40, so I'm not even thinking about that bad boy. So f of x, so that's like saying y is equal to 13. Y is equal to x squared minus 4x plus 40. Where my a value is 1, my b value is minus 4, and my c value is 40. X equal to the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. The opposite of b, the opposite of a minus 4 is positive 4. Plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, and c, which is 40. All this divided by twice a. A is 1, twice 1 is 2. 4 plus or minus the square root of negative 4 squared is 16. Minus, only one minus sign there. 4 times 40 times 1 is 160. Divided by 2. Alright, so this becomes 4 plus or minus the square root. Let's see, 16 combined with a minus 160 is a negative 144. And I'm going to write this as 4 plus or minus, I'm going to write this as a square root of negative 1 times the square root of 144. Negative 1 times that is that. This is the letter I. This becomes 4 plus or minus the square root of 144 is 12. That's my I, and that's a 2. Now you can realize that you get a common factor of 2 in the numerator. This would be 2 plus or minus 6i all over 2, and then the 2's simply cancel out over here, giving me 2 plus or minus 6i. 2 plus or minus 2 plus or minus 6i. You notice here, he tries to play a game with you, right? But you know that the opposite, I don't even know, well, in factoring out a 2, just keeping all your signs correct. Alright, here's the correct answer, 2 plus or minus. It's 2 plus or minus, it's not negative 2. Definitely wasn't this guy. Alright, what's nice about this 14, here again, scanning the answers, I see, 3 out of the 4 have radicals, 2 of those radicals have I, and then, chances of that being that is really remote. What I'm kind of looking at is square root of 39 in 3 of them, so as you're doing it, you're hoping that somewhere along the line, you kind of see the square root of 39 popping up. So f of x, that's the same thing as me saying y equals 2x squared minus x plus 5, where my a value is 2, my b value is a negative 1, and my c value is positive 5. X equal to the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. Even if you would use, I'm telling you to program your calculator, but your calculator would give you whatever answer it is, it's going to work out to be letter D, but it wouldn't give you a radical, it would give you some sort of a decimal, so you'd have to take that, radical and change it to a decimal. So, the quadratic formula is good. We have a difficult problem that can be factored. So, the opposite of b, if b is negative 1, the opposite of b is 1, plus or minus the square root of a negative 1 squared minus 4 times a, which is 2 times c, which is 5 all over twice a. A is 2, twice 2 is 4. So you've got 1 plus or minus the square root of 1 minus sign, so it's negative 4 2's 8 times 5 is 40. And one of these days I'm going to smarten up, but apparently it's not going to be this century. all over 4, so this becomes 1 plus or minus the square root of a minus, there's that 39 I was looking for, and I'm going to write this as 1 plus or minus, well, why take a shortcut now? This is going to be the square of negative 1 times the square root of 39 all over 4. Negative 1 times 39 is just that, alright, so 1 plus or minus radical 39i. Alright, I'll put the I there, depends how he does it. Yeah, he puts it on the end. All divided by 4. Now what he does here is he separates both terms in the numerator over the denominator. It goes 1 over 4 plus or minus the square root of 39 over 4. And he writes the I equal with the division symbol. Alright, here or here means the same thing. So what do we got? Number 14, as I said, letter D. There it is right there, and you see it right here. Alright, and the last one, what am I seeing? I'm seeing radical 85 twice. And I'm seeing radical 77 twice. No matter. I've got to use the quadratic equation where my A value is 1, my B value is negative 9, and my C value is 1 also. X equal to the opposite of B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C over 2A. The opposite of a negative 9 is 9 plus or minus the square root of negative 9 squared minus 4 times my A value times my C value. All of this over twice A. If A is 1, twice 1 is 2. 9 plus or minus the square root negative 9 squared, that's 81. Got one minus sign. 4 times 1 times 1 is 4. And I like it because already I'm seeing 81 minus 4 is 77, so kind of on the right track here. So 9 plus or minus 81 minus 4, well, that's 77. And this divided by 2. So number 15, right there, 9 plus or minus the square root of 77 over, you know, my 7's look a little weird, letter C. Alright, that was a whole bunch and then some. And now we've got the completing the square. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this video and I'll do this one separately. So if you need to watch just one of them and not the other, you can. Alright, so I'll do this as a separate video.